The repair bay smelled of burnt metal and ozone. Knelt beside the damaged weapons system, his tools spread across the floor. He was tired. 3 double shifts in a row had left dark circles under his eyes, but someone had to fix the Coalition fleet's equipment. The war with the neighboring systems meant every ship, every weapon, every bolt had to work perfectly. He didn't hear her enter. One moment he was alone, and the next, a shadow fell across his work, looked up and forgot to breathe. She was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, with skin that looked like living crystal, shifting from deep blue to purple as she moved. 3 sets of eyes watched him, 2 large ones in the normal position, and a smaller third set above them. Her armor was cracked, leaking a strange, luminescent fluid. "You are human," she said. Her voice was deep, musical, nothing like the harsh tones he expected from a warrior race. "Yes, your highness," recognized the royal markings on her armor, princess. He'd seen her face on every Coalition broadcast. She was a legend, the Empire's greatest fighter, trained since childhood to lead armies. "I'm Ensign. I'm just here to fix the weapon system." "My armor is broken," said, gesturing to the cracks spreading across her chest plate. "My people's engineers say it cannot be repaired until we return to the 3 months from now." Stood slowly, wiping his hands on his uniform. He shouldn't get involved. This was way above his rank. But the cracks in her armor were leaking faster now. That fluid was probably important. "May I look?" he asked. Tilted her head, a gesture that seemed curious rather than threatening. She stepped closer and had to crane his neck to see her face. Up close, her crystalline skin was beautiful, layers of translucent material that caught the light like a prism. He examined the cracks carefully. The armor was incredible, grown from the same crystalline substance as skin but denser, stronger. But the damage had created stress fractures that were spreading. "I think I can help," said. "It's not a proper fix, but I can seal the cracks, stop the spreading." "With what?" asked. "Your human technology is primitive compared to science." There was no insult in her voice, just fact. And she was right. Earth had only joined the Coalition 50 years ago. Humans were the weakest members, but had learned something important in his years as an engineer. Sometimes primitive worked better than advanced. "Plasma welding," he said. "We use it on ship hulls. The principle is simple, controlled heat, precise application, layer by layer. Your armor might be alien, but physics is physics." His third set of eyes blinked, a sign of surprise would later learn. "You would risk damaging royal armor on a theory." "I would risk trying to help," said. "If it doesn't work, you're no worse off than waiting 3 months. If it does work, you can go back to fighting tomorrow." Something shifted in his expression. Her skin flickered from purple to a warm amber color. "Very well, human. Show me your primitive solution." The work took 4 hours. Hands cramped and sweat dripped into his eyes, but he didn't stop. He talked while he worked, explaining what he was doing, why each step mattered. Listened, asking questions that showed she understood engineering better than most of his academy instructors. When he finished, the cracks were sealed. Not perfectly, the seams still showed, but the armor held. The fluid stopped leaking. "It's not pretty," admitted, "but it should hold until you can get proper repairs." Ran one massive hand across the sealed cracks. Her skin shifted to bright gold. Happiness would learn. "It is perfect. Functional over decorative. A very human philosophy." Over the following weeks, returned to the repair bay. At first, she came for small adjustments to the armor seals. Then she came just to talk. She was fascinated by humans, by Earth, by everything about people. "You have no natural weapons," she said one evening, watching him work on a damaged power core. "No claws, no armor, no venom. Your planet should have killed you." "It tried," said with a small smile. "Predators, diseases, natural disasters, Earth threw everything at us. But we survived because we adapted. We couldn't outrun the predators, so we outthought them. We couldn't survive the cold, so we made fire. We couldn't fly, so we built machines. Adaptation, repeated the word like it was new to her, are born perfect warriors. We do not need to adapt. Everyone needs to adapt, said. The universe changes. What worked yesterday might not work tomorrow. These conversations became the best part of his day. Told him about culture, about growing up in a palace made of living crystal, about the pressure of being the emperor's only daughter. She confessed fears she couldn't tell her own people, doubts about the coming war with the swarm. They are like insects, she explained, but intelligent, organized. They consume everything: planets, ships, even stars. The Coalition has never faced anything like them. Then the Coalition needs to think differently, said. Fighting the same way against a new enemy, that's how you lose. He told her about Earth's military history, strategies used by ancient commanders who won battles against superior forces. Deception, misdirection, using the enemy's strength against them. Absorbed it all, her eyes bright with interest. One night 6 months after they first met, found in the observation deck. He was staring at the stars, thinking about home. Earth was so far away now. I am being deployed tomorrow, said quietly. Leading the vanguard against the... It will be a long campaign, 6 months, perhaps more. His chest tightened. 6 months without these conversations. 6 months wondering if she was safe. You'll win, he said, trying to sound confident. You're the best warrior in the fleet. Will you be here when I return? Asked. There was something vulnerable in her voice, something that made her seem less like a towering alien warrior and more like a friend afraid of losing something precious. I'll be here, promised. I'll wait for you. Reached out and took his hand. Her crystalline palm was warm, smooth. She placed something in his hand, a small shard of her own armor, glowing softly with inner light. This is a blood oath, she said. A promise between warriors. You will wait for me. I will return to you. Neither of us will break this bond. Closed his fingers around the shard. It pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. I promise I'll be here. She left the next morning. Watched her ship disappear into the dark, the armor shard warm against his chest where he wore it on a chain. He didn't know then that 6 months would become 3 years. He didn't know that the war would consume everything. He didn't know that keeping his promise would cost him more than he could imagine. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would wait, because that's what humans did. They kept their promises no matter what. 6 months turned into a year. A year turned into 2. The war with the swarm was unlike anything the Coalition had faced before. The insects came in endless waves, consuming planets, stripping resources, moving to the next target. Every victory felt hollow because there were always more of them. Sent messages whenever he could. Short transmissions through the military network, hopping they reached somewhere in the darkness of space. He told her about his days, about the repairs he made, about small moments that reminded him of their conversations. He never received a reply. Communication from the front lines had gone completely dark 3 months into the campaign. She's probably too busy to respond, his bunkmate said, leading armies and all that. But knew better. The silence felt wrong, heavy, like something terrible was happening beyond the edges of known space. The Coalition started pulling resources from everywhere. Mining colonies, research stations, defensive positions. Everything was stripped to feed the war effort. Was reassigned 6 times in 2 years. He worked on frozen outposts where the air had to be manufactured. He fixed ships in asteroid fields while debris pelted his suit. He spent 4 months on a supply depot that got attacked twice by scouts. Every assignment he volunteered for positions closer to the front. Every transfer request got. We need experienced engineers everywhere, his commanders said. You're more valuable here. Commander Dahl was the only one who understood. Dahl was human too, one of the few who had risen to a command position in the Coalition fleet. He found one night in the engineering bay, working on weapon modifications long after his shift ended. You can't keep doing this, Dahl said, sitting beside him. Working yourself to death won't bring her back faster. I'm not working myself to death, said. I'm keeping busy. You're holding onto a promise made to someone who might not even remember you, Dahl said gently. She's royalty, leading armies across multiple systems. You're an engineer, a friend from 3 years ago. Maybe she. Dahl's voice was sharp. Don't say she forgot. Dahl sighed. I'm worried about you, brother, that's all. But couldn't let go. Every night he held the armor shard gave him. It still pulsed with warmth, still glowed in the dark. He studied culture in his free time, learning their language through old database files. He practiced writing their flowing script. He memorized their songs, their traditions, their history. He also kept working. The weapon modifications he designed using human engineering principles started getting noticed. Coalition ships using his improvements survived longer, hit harder, wasted less energy. Simple concepts, redundancy, modular design, easy field repairs. Things humans had learned the hard way on Earth. Awards came, commendations, promotions he didn't want. None of it mattered. He just wanted news from the front lines, any news. Then in the 3rd year, everything changed. Was working on a damaged fighter when the alarm started screaming. Red lights flooded the hangar. Everyone stopped working, looking at the screens. Emergency Coalition broadcast, the speakers announced. All personnel stand by. The screen flickered. The Coalition Supreme Commander appeared, his face grave. He was covered in scales that had dulled with age and stress. After 3 years of conflict, the commander said, the war with the swarm is over. Princess led the final assault on the Queen's hive ship. The Queen is dead. The swarm is broken. Cheers erupted across the hangar. People hugged, crying with relief. 3 years of fear and death finally over, but stood frozen, waiting for the rest. The commander's face grew darker. However, the cost was severe. 70% of the warrior caste has been lost, thousands of coalition ships destroyed, and Princess's world stopped. Is missing in action, presumed dead in the final explosion that destroyed the Queen. The armor shard against his chest went cold, completely cold for the first time in 3 years. Around him, people continued celebrating. The war was over. Humanity had survived, but couldn't hear any of it. The roaring in his ears drowned everything out. Dahl found him an hour later, sitting alone in a storage room, staring at nothing. I'm sorry, Dahl said simply. She's not dead, whispered. Dead? She's not dead. He pulled out the shard. It was cold but still glowing faintly. This is a blood oath. If she died, this would shatter its tradition. I researched it. Maybe the traditions are wrong, Dahl said gently. Maybe. I need to go to the, interrupted. I need to see for myself. That's crazy, you'll believe. The coalition is reorganizing. Everyone needs to stay at their posts. Then I'll go without permission. Stood up, decision made. I kept my promise, I waited. Now I need to find her. Dahl grabbed his arm. Think about this. You'll be court-martialed, your career. I don't care about my career, his voice cracked. I care about her. I promised I'd be there. I promised I'd wait. She returned from war, and where am I? Sitting in a repair bay halfway across the galaxy. I'm going, Dahl, with or without permission. Dahl stared at him for a long moment. Then he sighed. You stubborn idiot. Fine. I can get you 3 weeks personal leave. I'll mark it as trauma counseling. But that's all I can do. If you're not back in 3 weeks, I can't protect you. 3 weeks is enough, said. Thank you. He used every credit he'd saved over 3 years to book passage on a merchant ship heading toward space. The trip took 5 days. 5 days of sitting in a cramped passenger bay, clutching the cold armor shard, trying to convince himself he wasn't crazy. Prime appeared in the viewport, a planet of towering crystal spires and deep purple oceans. But something was wrong. The planet looked dimmer than the pictures he'd seen. Broken. The merchant captain was a grizzled who'd seen too many wars. Terrible thing, what happened to them, he muttered. Proud people, they, losing 70% of their warriors. That's losing their soul. The capital city was draped in mourning colors when arrived. Deep blue banners hung from every building. The few he saw moved slowly, their crystalline skin dim and gray. A civilization in grief. The royal palace was holding a memorial service for the fallen. Thousands of names projected in light, floating above the crowd, stood at the back, scanning the names. And there, among the honored dead, Narivlastra, Princess Warrior Leader, fell in final battle against the Kreth Queen. The cold shard in his hand pulsed once, faintly, just once. Left the memorial. If everyone believed she was dead, he'd prove them wrong. He started asking questions, talking to returning soldiers, visiting hospitals, finding anyone who was in the final battle. An old warrior missing one arm told him, "I saw the princess enter the queen's ship, saw the explosion. Nothing could survive that." But a medical officer, a human woman named, told him something different. "They have secret facilities," she whispered. "For the worst cases, warriors too damaged to show publicly. It's a pride thing, don't want the galaxy seeing their warriors broken." Where? Demanded. "The third moon, medical station, but you'll never get access, civilians aren't allowed." Looked at his coalition engineer's uniform. "What about military personnel?" Smiled slightly. "Medical staff always need engineers. Equipment breaks, I might be able to get you in." The armor shard pulsed again. Warmer now, definitely warmer. Clenched his fist around it. "Then let's go." He was coming, he'd kept his promise. He'd waited. And now he was going to find her, no matter what anyone said, because that's what humans did. They kept their promises, even when the entire galaxy said it was impossible. The medical station on Prime's third moon was nothing like the gleaming hospitals had seen in coalition propaganda. It was gray, quiet, and felt like a tomb. Led him through security, claiming he was there to repair environmental systems. The guards barely looked at his credentials. They seemed tired, defeated. "This way," whispered, guiding him down a long corridor. "The worst cases are in the deep chambers. They keep them separate." "Why?" asked. "Pride," said sadly. "Our warriors, seeing their strongest reduced to what you're about to see, it breaks something in them. Better to pretend they died gloriously than admit their suffering." They passed through 3 more security checkpoints. Each one made his heart beat faster. The armor shard against his chest was warm now, pulsing steadily. She was here. She had to be here. The final chamber was massive, filled with rows of crystalline stasis pods. Each pod contained a warrior, their bodies damaged in ways that made sick, missing limbs, cracked skin. Some were so broken they barely looked alive. "The princess is in the back," said quietly. "They keep royalty separate." Walked between the rows, trying not to look at the broken warriors. Each one was someone's friend, someone's family. Each one had fought and suffered. But he couldn't stop for them. Not yet. He had to find first. The private chamber held only one pod. The glass was frosted but could see a shape inside, tall, familiar. His hands shook as he approached. A doctor stood beside the pod checking readings. He looked up sharply when entered. "This area is restricted. How did you?" "Please," said, "I need to see her." The doctor's 3 sets of eyes studied. "You are human. Why would a human care about our princess?" "Because I made her a promise," said simply. "I told her I'd wait for her. I'm here." Something shifted in the doctor's expression. He gestured to the pod. "Very well, look." Stepped forward. The frost cleared and he saw her. Looked like she was dying. Her beautiful crystalline skin was covered in black veins, spreading from her chest like poison. Her 3 sets of eyes were closed. Her breathing was shallow. The strong, proud warrior he'd known looked fragile, broken. "What happened to her?" whispered. The Queen's final weapon, the doctor explained. A nanoplague designed to consume crystalline structures. It's eating her from the inside. We've tried everything. Our most advanced treatments, experimental procedures. Nothing works. The plague adapts to every treatment we attempt. She has perhaps 3 days left. 3 days, pressed his hand against the glass. There has to be something. There is nothing, the doctor said. We are keeping her comfortable until the end. It is all we can do. Stared its face. 3 years. 3 years of waiting, hopping, believing. He'd come all this way, broken regulations, spent everything he had, and he was too late. No, he refused to accept that. Let me see the medical scans, said. You are an engineer, not a doctor, the doctor protested. Exactly. You've tried medical solutions. Let me see it as an engineering problem. The doctor hesitated, then pulled up holographic displays showing his body. The black veins were everywhere, branching through her crystalline structure like corrupted circuitry. But as studied the scans, something clicked in his engineer's brain. This isn't biological, he said. Look at the pattern, it's too regular, too organized. This is technological. It is a plague, the doctor insisted. It's a nanomachine plague, corrected. Tiny machines designed to break down crystalline structures. You've been treating it like a disease, trying to kill it with medicine. But it's not alive. It's a machine network. So, the doctor asked, we cannot reach inside her body to remove millions of microscopic machines. We don't have to remove them, said, his mind racing. We have to disrupt their communication. Machines need to coordinate to share information. Break their network and they stop functioning. He turned to the doctor. Do you have electromagnetic pulse equipment? For sterilization, yes, but it would kill her. The pulse would shatter her crystalline structure. Not if we control it, said. Precise frequencies, targeted areas, layer by layer. We don't hit her with one massive pulse. We use thousands of tiny ones, each carefully calculated to disrupt the machines without damaging her body. The doctor shook his head. That level of precision is impossible. One mistake and we kill her instantly. Then we don't make mistakes, said firmly. Get me the EMP equipment. I'll modify it. You are insane, the doctor said. I cannot allow. She's dying anyway, his voice echoed through the chamber. You said 3 days. I'm offering a chance. Maybe small, maybe impossible, but it's more than she is now. The doctor looked at Spod, then back at. Finally, he nodded. Very well, but I will need approval from the Coalition's chief medical officer, and you will need assistance. This is not a one-person operation. 3 hours later, Doctor arrived from the Coalition medical flagship. She was human, older, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She listened to his plan, studied the scans, and then smiled. It's crazy, she said, but crazy is better than giving up. Let's do it. They worked for 3 days straight, tore apart a mining EMP device, rebuilding it into something new, a medical tool that could deliver precise electromagnetic pulses, calculated frequencies, working with the doctor to map his exact body structure. Every calculation had to be perfect. Every pulse had to hit exactly the right spot at exactly the right strength. Helped coordinate, bringing supplies, keeping other staff away, making sure they had time to work. On the 3rd morning, everything was ready. The modified EMP device sat beside Spod. Monitors covered the walls, tracking every aspect of her condition. Hands were steady as he initialized the system, but inside his heart was pounding. If this works, it will take at least 16 hours, said. We pulse one small area, wait for the nanomachines to die, then move to the next. Slow and careful. And if it doesn't work, the doctor asked. Then we tried, said simply, begin. The first pulse fired. On the monitors, a tiny section of black veins flickered and faded. His body reading spiked, then stabilized. It worked. It actually worked. Hour after hour, they pulsed different areas. The black vein slowly died section by section. Didn't leave the controls, adjusting frequencies, compensating for variations in her body structure. His eyes burned with exhaustion, but he couldn't stop. Not now. Not when they were so close. 14 hours in, his primary eyes flickered. 16 hours in, the last black vein died. 17 hours in, her eyes opened. Was adjusting a monitor when he heard the sound, a soft crackling like ice breaking. He turned and saw staring at him through the pod's glass. Her eyes were weak but clear. Alive. Actually alive. The doctor rushed to open the pod. Medical readouts flashed across screens. Stable, healing, alive. Against every prediction, against every expectation, she was going to survive. Lips moved. Her voice was barely a whisper, but heard every word clearly. "Did you abandon me, human?" The other doctors froze. In culture, those words were the worst accusation possible, a death insult. The doctor looked horrified, but saw what they didn't. Second set of eyes were wet tears, a sign of overwhelming emotion. She wasn't accusing him. She was asking if he was real, if he truly came back for her. Took her fractured hand gently. It was still weak, still healing, but warm, alive. "Never," he said. "I promised I'd wait. I kept my promise." A sound escaped, half laugh, half sob. Her crystalline skin flickered through a dozen colors before settling on pure gold. Joy, relief, gratitude. "You came," she whispered. "You actually came." "Of course I came," said, and smiled despite the tears running down his face. "I'm human. We keep our promises, even the impossible ones." His recovery took 6 weeks. Stayed beside her the entire time, ignoring his expired leave, ignoring the messages from Dahl warning him about court-martial, ignoring everything except the warrior princess slowly healing in the medical bay. The doctors were amazed. Her crystalline structure was regenerating faster than they'd ever seen. New layers formed over the damaged areas, stronger than before. Her 3 sets of eyes regained their brightness. Color returned to her skin, shifting blues and purples that meant she was healthy, alive. Spent the days teaching her simple Earth card games to help rebuild her tactical thinking. They played endless rounds of poker and quickly learned to read his tells. "You touch your ear when you bluff," she said, placing her cards down with a triumphant smile. "Humans are very expressive." "That's cheating," protested. "You have 3 sets of eyes. That's not fair." "Life is not fair," said, but her voice was warm. "That is a human saying, is it not?" These quiet moments reminded of 3 years ago before the war. But everything had changed. Had nightmares now, waking up screaming about the queen, about watching her warriors die. Would sit with her until the fear passed, talking about nothing important until she calmed. One night, when the nightmares were particularly bad, told him what really happened in the final battle. "The High Command wanted a glorious assault," she said, staring at the ceiling. "Direct attack, warrior pride, overwhelming force, but the Queen was too strong. We lost thousands of ships in the first wave. I watched them die. I watched them die because we fought the way we've always fought." "What did you do?" asked. "I remembered what you taught me," said. "Human tactics, deception, using weakness as strength. I ordered a retreat." "A retreat, don't retreat." "Exactly, that's why it worked." Skin flickered with remembered tension. "The Queen thought we were defeated. She pursued us into an asteroid field. We lured her ships into narrow spaces where numbers didn't matter. Then we used guerrilla tactics, hit and run, strike and fade. Human strategies." "The other commanders must have been furious," said. "They called me a coward," admitted. "Said I was abandoning warrior honor for primitive human tricks, but it was working. We were winning. So I ignored them and kept fighting the human way." She fell silent for a moment. "The final assault on the Queen's Hive ship, I should have died. The explosion should have killed everyone within 1,000 kilometers, but I wore upgraded armor. The armor you helped me repair 3 years ago improved with human engineering principles, redundant systems, multiple layers, adaptive plating. The armor held just long enough for a rescue ship to find me. So human engineering saved your life twice, said softly. Human stubbornness saved me, corrected. Your people never give up, even when logic says you should, even when everyone says it's impossible, you just keep trying. The news of survival spread through the coalition like wildfire. The princess who was presumed dead was alive, saved by a human engineer who traveled across the galaxy to keep a 3-year-old promise. The story became legend overnight. Reporters tried to interview, he refused them all. He hadn't come for fame, he'd come because he promised. But when the high command arrived to honor recovery, he couldn't avoid attention anymore. Emperor was even more imposing than his daughter, 10 feet tall, with skin like polished diamonds and a presence that made everyone in the room feel small. He entered the medical bay with a full honor guard. Immediately tried to stand from her bed, but her father gestured for her to stay. His 3 sets of eyes studied her, then moved too. "This is the human," the emperor said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, father said. He saved my life." By ignoring military orders, traveling without authorization, and performing experimental medical procedures, the emperor said. His voice was neutral, impossible to read. His heart sank. He was about to be arrested, possibly executed, took honor seriously, and he'd broken about a dozen regulations. Father began, but the emperor raised a hand. "I would like to understand," the emperor said too, "why a human engineer would risk everything for my daughter." Met the emperor's eyes, all 6 of them. "Because I made her a promise, your majesty. I told her I'd wait for her. I did. Then I heard she was missing and I knew I had to find her. Promises aren't just words to humans. They're bonds we don't break." "Even when breaking them would be easier?" the emperor asked. "Especially then," said. Something flickered in the emperor's expression. He turned too. "My daughter, this human honored our blood oath tradition more faithfully than many would. This is remarkable." "Humans are remarkable," father said. "I've been trying to tell the high command for 3 years. We won the war because I fought like a human, adapting, thinking differently, refusing to give up. Not because I fought like a—" Before the emperor could respond, another figure entered the medical bay. He was nearly as tall as the emperor, with skin like emeralds and armor that marked him as royalty from another house. "Prince," said, and her skin flickered to a dull gray. Displeasure had learned. "My betrothed," Prince said, walking to his bedside. He completely ignored. "I came as soon as I heard of your miraculous recovery. The wedding can proceed as planned." Wedding, the word hit like a physical blow. "The wedding was arranged before the war," said carefully. "Circumstances have changed." "Nothing has changed," said smoothly. "You are alive, I am alive. Our houses will unite as planned. It is a matter of honor and politics." He finally glanced at, dismissive. This human performed a service to the empire. Let him accept his reward and return to his duties. "He is my blood oath," said. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "Where I go, he goes." Skin flickered to dark red anger. "You would dishonor a political alliance for a human, an engineer." "I would honor my blood oath," said firmly. "Came for me when everyone else had given up. He saved my life when your advanced medicine failed. He kept his promise when breaking it would have been easier. That is worth more than any political arrangement." "This is unacceptable," said, looking at the emperor. "Your Majesty, surely you will not allow this insult to my house." The emperor was quiet for a long moment. "The blood oath is sacred to our people, but so are political alliances. This situation is complicated." "It is simple," said. "I choose my blood oath over political convenience." "You cannot simply choose," began. "Then I challenge you," interrupted. "Ritual combat. If you truly believe you deserve to be my partner, prove it in battle." But stepped forward, no. Everyone looked at him. He felt very small, very human, surrounded by these towering crystalline beings. But he'd come this far. He might as well finish it. "This isn't about combat," said. "Princess won the war not by being the strongest warrior, but by thinking differently, by adapting, by using what her enemies didn't expect. She learned that from humans, and the most human thing of all, choosing loyalty over law, choosing bonds formed freely over bonds forced by tradition." He looked at the emperor. "You asked why I came for her, your majesty. I came because she's my friend. Because 3 years ago she didn't see a weak human when she looked at me. She saw someone worth talking to, worth trusting. I returned that trust. That's what humans do. We build bonds not because we have to, but because we choose to." The silence stretched. Then Prince laughed, a harsh sound. "You would take relationship advice from a species that barely survived their own planet, who have been in the coalition for only 50 years. "Yes," said quietly, "I would, because they survived, because they adapted, because they're still here despite every reason they shouldn't be. That's stronger than any crystalline armor. That's a strength you don't understand." The emperor's skin shifted through several colors. Deep thought had learned. Finally, he spoke. "There will be a coalition council meeting in 3 days. This matter affects more than just our house. The council will decide." He looked at, "Human, you have challenged centuries of tradition with your actions. I do not know if that is brave or foolish. Perhaps both. But you have proven one thing: humans are more than they appear. We will see if the council agrees." As the emperor and prince left, took's hand. Her skin glowed warm gold. "Thank you," she whispered. "I didn't do anything," said. "You did everything," corrected. "You showed them what humanity really means. Now we wait to see if they listen." The Coalition Council chamber was enormous. Representatives from 200 species filled the tiered seats, crystalline, scaled, gaseous ethereals in containment suits, and dozens more. At the center stood, fully recovered now, wearing ceremonial armor that gleamed like starlight. Beside her stood, feeling very small in his simple coalition uniform. The council speaker, an ancient named, called the session to order. "We are here to address a matter of tradition versus choice. Princess has invoked the blood oath to refuse a political marriage. This creates a crisis that affects us all." Prince stood in the opposing section, his emerald skin flickering with barely controlled anger. "The marriage between our houses was arranged to strengthen the coalition's eastern border. Breaking this arrangement could lead to war." Murmurs spread through the chamber. The coalition was still recovering from the war. Another conflict would be devastating. "The blood oath is sacred," Father Emperor said from his seat. "But political stability is necessary for survival. My daughter has placed us in an impossible position." "Then I will make it possible," said, stepping forward. Her voice carried through the massive chamber without electronic amplification, a warrior's voice, trained to command armies. "I invoke the right to address the council directly." Speaker hesitated, then nodded. "Speak, Princess." Stood tall, her skin shifting to warrior silver, the color of determination. "For 3 years I fought the swarm. I watched thousands die. I saw strategies fail because we were too proud to adapt, too certain that our traditional ways were the only ways. We nearly lost that war." She gestured to. "This human taught me something before the war began. He taught me that survival isn't about being the strongest or the most advanced. It's about adapting. It's about thinking differently when the old ways fail." "Pretty words," Prince said dismissively. "But this is about honor, not war strategies." "It's about both," countered. "In the final battle I abandoned tactics. I used human strategies, deception, guerrilla warfare, strategic retreat. The High Command called me a coward. They said I dishonored our warrior traditions. But those dishonorable tactics won the war." She turned to face the full council. I wore human-designed armor that saved my life. I was healed by human engineering principles when our advanced medicine failed. And when I was dying, forgotten in a medical facility, it was a human who came for me. Not my betrothed, not my military commanders. A human engineer who traveled across the galaxy to keep a 3-year-old promise. The chamber was silent now. Every representative watched intently. You call humans primitive, continued. Weak, young, but they have something most advanced species have lost. They adapt through connection. They build bonds not through instinct or tradition, but through choice. Through trust earned, not commanded. Through promises kept, even when keeping them seems impossible. Beautiful philosophy, said coldly. But philosophy doesn't maintain alliances. It doesn't prevent wars. You would risk coalition stability for sentiment. I would risk tradition for something better, said firmly. The coalition was built on military alliances and political arrangements. Species working together because they must, not because they choose to. How strong is that, really? How long can it last? She looked then back at the council. Humans show us a different way. They form bonds through demonstrated loyalty, through actions, not words, through choices freely made. What if the coalition followed that example? What if we built alliances on trust instead of treaties, on friendship instead of fear? Naive, scoffed. You would remake the entire coalition based on one human's actions. Not one human, said a voice from the gallery. Commander Dahl stood up, surprising. Humans have been demonstrating these principles since we joined the coalition. We take the dangerous assignments. We volunteer for impossible missions. We keep our promises even when it costs us everything. That's not naive. That's reliable. Another voice spoke, Doctor. Human medical principles saved Princess when our advanced technology failed. Not because we're smarter, but because we approach problems differently. We adapt. We try new things. We don't give up. More voices joined in. The medical officer, engineers who had worked with, soldiers who had seen human adaptability in combat. One by one, they to humanity's strange strength, the stubborn refusal to abandon those they'd promised to protect. Speaker raised his hand for silence. Princess, what exactly are you proposing? Took a deep breath. I propose the coalition adopt what I call the adaptation doctrine. Species may form alliances through demonstrated loyalty rather than just political arrangement. Let actions speak louder than treaties. Let trust be earned, not forced. And let individuals choose their bonds freely. You would destroy centuries of tradition, said. I would offer an alternative to tradition, corrected. Keep your political marriages if they work, but also allow bonds formed through choice. Let both exist. Let the results speak for themselves. Emperor stood. My daughter, you realize what you're asking. You're suggesting that humans, the youngest, weakest coalition members, have discovered something the rest of us missed. Yes, father said simply, I am. The emperor's skin flickered through many colors. Finally, he laughed, a deep, rumbling sound. Perhaps they have. The human came for you when I did not. He saved you when our best doctors could not. He kept his promise when breaking it would have been easier. He looked at, Human, what is your name again? Your Majesty said, his voice barely steady. The emperor repeated, You have shown my daughter what loyalty truly means. You have proven that strength comes in many forms. For that, you have my gratitude and my respect. The emperor turned to the council. I support the adaptation doctrine. Let species choose their alliances. Let individuals choose their bonds. If it fails, we return to the old ways. But I believe we will discover, as my daughter did, that humans are stronger than they appear. I oppose this madness, declared. The or empire will not stand for. Then stand aside, interrupted. I gave you the chance to understand. You refused. The difference between you and is simple. He chose to believe in me. You just wanted to own me. That's not partnership. That's property. Her skin shifted to warrior silver. I choose my blood oath. I choose trust over tradition. I choose as my advisor, my strategist, and my friend. If that costs me a political marriage, so be it. I'd rather have one human who keeps his promises than 100 alliances built on convenience. Speaker called for a vote. It wasn't unanimous. Many representatives clung to traditional ways, but enough voted in favor that the adaptation doctrine passed. The coalition would allow bonds formed through choice. Species could build alliances through demonstrated loyalty. It was a small change in policy, but a massive shift in philosophy. Prince left without another word, his skin flickering dark red with fury. Some representatives left with him, but most stayed curious about this new direction. After the session ended, found standing alone on an observation deck, staring at the stars. "Did we just change the entire coalition?" asked quietly. "We offered them an alternative," said. "Whether they accept it fully, time will tell." "I just wanted to keep my promise to you," said. "I didn't mean to start a political revolution." "That's what makes it real," said gently. "You didn't do it for glory or politics. You did it because it was right. That's the most human thing of all." They stood in silence for a moment, watching ships come and go from the coalition hub. "What happens now?" asked. "Now," smiled, her skin warm gold. "Now you help me rebuild the empire using human principles. You become my chief strategist. You teach our warriors that adaptation is stronger than tradition. And together, we prove that the smallest species in the coalition has the biggest heart." "That sounds impossible," said. "Good," said. "Humans specialize in impossible." 10 years later, the human alliance was the strongest force in the coalition. Other species mocked it at first, the proud warriors and the soft survivors, but couldn't deny its effectiveness. Admiral commanded fleets using combined strength and human tactics. Empress ruled with a balance of traditional honor and innovative adaptation. Together, they faced new threats and explored new frontiers. They proved that the galaxy's future belonged not to the strongest or the most advanced, but to those who could adapt, to those who kept their promises, to those who chose loyalty over convenience. And in the Imperial archives on Prime, preserved in a crystal case, sat a worn engineering toolkit and a small communication device. The items carried across the galaxy to keep a promise. Because that's what humans do. They make impossible promises. And they keep them. No matter what.